What if the thing that makes you human is also the thing that's slowly destroying you? Not your body, not your circumstances, your mind, your ability to think, to wonder, to ask why. In 1933, a Norwegian philosopher named Peter Wessel Zapffe wrote an essay so unsettling that most people who read it never forget it. He called it The Last Messiah, and in it, he made a claim that still feels dangerous to say out loud today. He said that human consciousness was a biological mistake, not a gift, not a triumph of evolution, a mistake. And once you understand why he believed that, you will never look at your own thoughts the same way again. Let's start with a question. Have you ever lain awake at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how small you are, how short life is? How does none of it seem to add up to anything in the end? Most people feel that at some point. A cold wave of dread that comes from nowhere and everywhere at once. Zapf didn't think that feeling was random. He thought it was the most honest thing a human being could ever feel. He believed that underneath every distraction, every routine, every plan for the future, there is a raw and terrifying truth waiting. And that truth is this: life has no built-in meaning. The universe does not care if you exist. And somewhere deep inside, you already know it. So why don't we all collapse under that realization? Why do most people wake up, go to work, laugh with friends, fall in love, and function like everything is fine? Zapf's answer was simple and brutal. He said we survive because we lie to ourselves. Not maliciously, not even consciously most of the time. He believed the human mind developed elaborate defense mechanisms to keep functioning in a universe that offers no answers. Without those defenses, he argued, most people would be crushed by the weight of their own awareness. To understand why Zapffe thought this way, you have to understand how he saw human evolution. Animals, he said, are perfectly suited to their environment. A wolf does not lie awake wondering about the meaning of its life. A bird does not panic about death while it builds its nest. Their minds evolved just enough to survive, hunt, mate, and avoid danger. Nothing more. But humans, he argued, evolved something dangerous. We evolved too much consciousness. We developed the ability to reflect on ourselves, to imagine the future, to picture our own death, to ask questions the universe was never built to answer. In Zapf's eyes, this was not a step forward. It was an evolutionary overreach. He called it a biological paradox, a species that became too aware for its own good. Think about that for a second. Every other creature on this planet lives inside its environment without needing a reason to keep living. But you, sitting here right now, need meaning. You crave purpose. You want your life to matter. And nature never promised you that. Zapffe believed this mismatch between what our minds demand and what reality provides is the deepest source of human suffering. Not poverty, not heartbreak, not even death itself. The suffering comes from the awareness of these things, layered atop the awareness that awareness exists at all. He described it almost like a wound that never fully heals. Imagine being given eyes that can see too far. You can see your own mortality coming from decades away. You can see the fragility of everyone you love. You can see the vast indifference of the universe stretching out in every direction. Most animals never have to carry that weight. But you do, every single day. So how do we survive it? How does anyone get out of bed knowing all of this? This is where Zapf's theory becomes almost eerie in how accurately it describes modern life. He proposed that humans develop four main strategies to repress this overwhelming awareness. And once you hear them, you will start noticing them everywhere, maybe even in your own life. The first strategy he called isolation. This does not mean isolating yourself from other people. It means isolating your mind from disturbing thoughts. You push the darkest questions out of conscious awareness. You refuse to think about death, meaninglessness, or the fragility of existence for too long. Have you ever caught yourself thinking about something terrifying, like your own mortality, and then almost automatically changing the subject in your head? That is isolation in action. Your mind is protecting itself by shutting the door before the fear gets too loud. The second strategy is anchoring. This is where people attach themselves to fixed, stable ideas that give their lives a sense of structure and permanence. Religion, nationality, career identity, family roles, political ideology. Zapffe believed these anchors are not necessarily bad, but they exist primarily to give people a feeling of solid ground in a universe that offers none. When someone says, "This is simply who I am. This is just how things are," They're often anchoring themselves against the chaos underneath. It feels safe. It feels certain, even when, deep down, nothing is actually certain at all. The third strategy is distraction. This one is probably the most familiar to you, especially now. Zapffe wrote about this in the 1930s, decades before smartphones, social media, or endless streaming content existed, and yet his description fits perfectly. He said humans constantly flood their minds with stimulation specifically to avoid confronting deeper existential questions. Work, entertainment, scrolling, noise, constant motion. If the mind never sits still, it never has to face the silence where the harder questions live. Ask yourself honestly, how often do you reach for your phone the moment a quiet, uncomfortable thought starts to surface? The fourth strategy is sublimation. This is the most creative of the four. Instead of repressing existential anxiety, some people transform it into something meaningful. Art, music, philosophy, writing. Zapffe himself was a perfect example of this. He took his own dread and turned it into one of the most powerful philosophical essays of the 20th century. Sublimation does not eliminate the underlying awareness of meaninglessness, but it channels it into something that can be shared, expressed, and even beautiful. Strangely, creativity becomes a form of survival. Now here is where Zaffe's philosophy takes its darkest and most controversial turn. He believed that because human consciousness causes so much unnecessary suffering, the most compassionate act possible would be for humanity to voluntarily stop reproducing. Not through violence, not through catastrophe, simply through conscious choice. He imagined a figure he called the last Messiah, someone who would arrive not with promises of salvation or eternal life, but with a single, quiet message. Stop. Let this species end gently, with awareness, rather than continue passing on a burden that was never asked for. This idea is often labeled as philosophical pessimism or even antinatalism, and it makes a lot of people deeply uncomfortable. And that discomfort is worth sitting with for a moment, rather than immediately rejecting. Whether or not you agree with his conclusion, the questions underneath it are impossible to ignore once you have heard them. Is it fair to bring a conscious being into a universe that guarantees suffering and offers no inherent meaning? Is the drive to have children more about biology than genuine choice? Are we handing down awareness like a gift or like a wound? It is worth remembering that Zapffe was not writing from a place of bitterness or cruelty. He lived a long life, well into his 90s, and by most accounts, he was a warm, curious, and even joyful man. He loved mountain climbing. He loved humor. He loved nature deeply. This is part of what makes his philosophy so strange and so compelling. He was not a broken man projecting his pain onto the world. He was someone who looked directly at the hardest questions life offers and still found ways to live fully within that darkness. In a way, he became living proof of his own theory of sublimation. He took the weight of his awareness and turned it into decades of thought, adventure, and connection rather than letting it crush him. That contrast matters. It would be easy to dismiss The Last Messiah as the writing of someone consumed by despair. But Zapffe himself seemed to prove that awareness and joy are not mutually exclusive. You can look directly at the absence of cosmic meaning and still choose to climb the mountain anyway. Still choose to laugh with friends. Still choose to build something that matters to you, even knowing the universe will never confirm that it mattered at all. Notice, too, how these four strategies rarely work alone. Most people use all of them at once, shifting between them depending on the day, the mood, the situation. You might anchor yourself in your career identity during the week, distract yourself with a show at night, isolate the scarier thoughts before they fully form, and then, on a rare quiet evening, sit down and write something honest that finally lets out a little of that pressure. Zapffe was not describing four separate types of people. He was describing four tools that live inside all of us, ready to be picked up the moment reality starts to feel too heavy to hold with bare hands. You do not have to agree with Zaffe's conclusion to find value in his diagnosis. In fact, many modern thinkers reject his solution while still respecting the sharpness of his observation. Whether or not you believe humanity should stop reproducing, it is hard to deny that his four coping mechanisms describe something painfully accurate about how people actually live. Look around: isolation, anchoring, distraction, sublimation. You will see them in your coworkers. You will see them in your family. you will probably see them in yourself. And maybe that is the real gift hidden inside this unsettling philosophy. Not a call to despair, but a call to honesty. Zapffe was not trying to make people miserable. He was trying to name something most people feel but never say out loud. He was trying to explain why modern life so often feels like a performance, a constant motion designed to avoid stillness. And once you can name a feeling, you gain a strange kind of power over it. You stop being controlled by something invisible, and you start being able to look at it directly. So what do you do with all of this? You do not have to become a nihilist. You do not have to accept his conclusion about human extinction, but you can use his diagnosis as a mirror. Ask yourself honestly, which of these four strategies do you lean on the most? Do you numb yourself with distraction the moment things get quiet? Do you cling to rigid beliefs to feel steady? Do you avoid certain thoughts entirely because they feel too heavy to hold? There is no shame in any of this. These are simply the tools the human mind built to survive an impossible situation. But awareness gives you a choice that repression never can. You can choose which of these tools serve you, and which ones are quietly running your life without your permission. Maybe the answer is not to escape awareness, but to build a relationship with it, to stop treating existential dread as something shameful or broken, and start treating it as proof that you are paying attention. The animals in Zaffe's essay never had to ask why, but you do. And maybe, instead of seeing that as a curse, you can see it as the price of being able to witness your own existence truly. Painful, yes, but rare. Almost nothing else in this universe, as far as we know, gets to ask why it exists at all. You do, every single day. That is either the heaviest burden a species could carry or the strangest, most extraordinary privilege in the known universe. Perhaps, in the end, it is both at once. Zapffe never gave humanity a comfortable answer. He gave us a mirror instead, and mirrors are rarely comfortable. But they are honest. And in a world built on distraction, honesty might be the most radical thing left. So the next time your mind goes quiet, and that old, familiar unease starts creeping in, do not immediately reach for your phone to drown it out. Sit with it for just a moment. Ask yourself what it is really trying to tell you. You might not like the answer, but you are among the few who have actually looked. If this made you think differently, even for a moment, that is exactly why this channel exists. We are here to sit with the questions most people run from, together. So if this video meant something to you, hit like. It genuinely helps this kind of content reach more people who need to hear it. And if you want more of this, subscribe, because we are just getting started. The mind that questions everything is not broken. It is awake. Stay awake with us.